Surprised when you...
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Akakwadash. Double honor to the apostles and the elders, the elder bishops of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. To the men on the highways and the byways that are pushing out this word in truth and sincerity. And to the remnant men, women, and children of the elect, to you all I say Shalom. My name is Ahmawan Ahyash. I'm back with another lesson through the power and the spirit of Yahawah by Yahawashi. Lord willing, this is edifying. And I just wanted to play this video. I found it very interesting the way this gentleman broke this down. I got this video off of X, formerly known as Twitter. And the way he broke this down, and it's only a minute long, about a minute and 30 seconds long, but, you know, it speaks to, you know, a lot of what we always talk about, just in terms of, you know, Babylon the Great and where we are. You know, I'm not gonna say it now, but as soon as I play the video, just as I heard it for the first time, the one word that came to mind right away as soon as I heard this gentleman speak, that one word that came to mind immediately as soon as I heard him talk, is what I want to speak on. So I'm going to play the video. And at the bottom, you see here, it says the family unit, right? Because, you know, there's a very distinct way that families are being raised, children are being raised, and it's not by accident, it's not by coincidence. It's very structured, it's on purpose, and everything that we see, hear, and consume, it's an agenda. You know what I mean? So that's what I want to speak to. That's what this video is going to speak to. I have some precepts lined up, so I'm going to play this video and get straight to it.
Send your kids off to Caesar. Don't be surprised when you send your kids off to Caesar and they come back as Romans. That's it, man. You're wondering why everyone's gone woke and has no idea what bathroom to use anymore. Just, if like, what happened to our kids? I'm like, well, you gave them to the government for their entire childhood. You saw them at dinner and you attended their sporting events, but the government raised your kids. And social media helped. And video games or whatever, but you saw them every day, but you didn't raise them. You didn't log enough hours each day to counteract all the poison and time wasting and ideological propagandistic crap that they were getting fed year after year after year. And so millennial generation and now Gen Z has gone woke. And we feel like, oh, what happened to my daughter? We raised him better than that. No, I mean this in love, but you didn't raise him at all. That hurts to say because I know it hurts people to hear. And we trusted that they were being taught good information that wasn't undermining our values. But there's been a psyop in play for decades, which is undermining our values and waging war against the family unit. Don't be surprised.
All right, so, you know, I was a minute and 30 seconds. And the very first thing that came to mind, and I'm sure if you're watching this video and you've been in the faith, you've been in the truth for a certain amount of time, the first thing that probably popped in your mind was what? Hellenization, right? Because the first thing that man said was, don't be surprised when you send your kid off to Caesar and they come back as Romans, right? Don't be surprised. You can't be surprised when you send your kids off to Caesar and they come back as Romans. Why? Because they'll be Hellenized by everything that they consume on a daily basis. You send your kids off 8 hours a day. You send them to this Babylonian educational system, which is, you know, it's all conditioning. Okay. A bunch of deception, lies, trickery when it comes to history, when it comes to how they are raising and training kids to think, because they're not necessarily even training kids, young people to think on their own, so to think critically. They are conditioning them to be raised up and think according to, how, Babylon the Great actually operates. They're trained and raised up to be slaves, to not think for themselves at all, but everything is placed in front of them. You know, um, the, their pineal glands are not active. You know what I mean? And that's on purpose. So don't be surprised when you send your kids off to season and they come back as Romans. And there's plenty of examples of that in the scriptures, beginning with the Greek Empire, when it came to that history concerning Israel. All right, when they were in the Greek captivity, and they were left to serve and to be transformed into Greeks, due to the decree of Antiochus Epiphanes during that time. And I'm going to get the scriptures, because the scriptures say during that time great evils will multiply in the earth, and basically there was nothing that they would allow except for this Hellenization, being stripped of your customs, being stripped of your identity, being stripped of everything that makes you who you are, and turning you into a Greek. Okay. And that's what this gentleman is talking about. But he used the Romans as an example. Okay. And that's what we're seeing here now in Babylon the Great. And this is not talked about enough. All right. These are the talking points that are coming up slowly but surely, a little bit more, when exposing Esau, exposing his agenda, exposing who he is, and and what he's done in the earth. Okay. Because the scriptures say the earth was given into the hands of the wicked. And what is it? What has he done with his rulership? What has he done with his power? Okay. He's Hellenized. He's destroyed, broken down, thrown down, done nothing but evil. And this is a part of it. Okay. And like this gentleman was mentioning, like, you don't get the opportunity to raise your kids, because why? You send them off to school. They spend 8 to 10 hours in an so-called education system that doesn't teach them anything. It doesn't teach them how to learn and think for themselves and grow. They just basically condition them and feed them with ideas and concepts that don't benefit them, and don't benefit and don't promote independent thinking. And this is the result of it. You know what I mean? People are trained to think that they need to enter into Esau's schools, and from kindergarten to 12th grade, and then you have to enter into college, and you have to pay for it. You have to pay to learn. Ain't that some shit? You have to go to this man's system. You have to pay to learn, and pay to be a productive member of society, all the while you're not really growing and learning and building yourself up to be an independent thinker, someone who has any real type of wisdom. You're just trained, sheep to the slaughter. All right. Let me get a couple of precepts that I have lined up here. I'm going to start off with, since he mentioned Caesar, let me go to Luke, because it was after the first thing I thought of, like I said, it said I thought of Hellenization, but since he mentioned Caesar, the next thing I thought of was, man, we really have to render to Caesar what is his. we find ourselves in captivity here in Babylon under the modern day Caesar, which is, just this entire system that we're under here in Babylon the Great, whether you want to liken Caesar unto the president, but the system in general, we have to pay taxes the way we have to pay taxes, pay tributary. We have to, fall in line, basically, because you can't function, you can't be a productive member of Esau's society, of Esau's system, if you don't go through basically the ringer. If you don't go through his education system, if you don't, bring your kids to their doctors and their, get them vaccinated and all these different types. You can't even enter your kids into school. You can't be. You're an outcast if you don't follow the order that this man has set up, based on, according to the rulership that he has been given. Okay, and like the scriptures say in Job 9:24, the earth was given into the hands of the wicked. This man was given his rulership. All right, so because it was given to him by the Heavenly Father Yahweh, you have to respect, and basically play the game. You know what I mean? You have to give this man, render unto Caesar what is his. So this is Luke 20:25, and he said unto them, render therefore unto Caesar the things which be Caesar's, and unto the Most High the things which be the Most High's. So you have to render unto Caesar what is his. You have to pay taxes, right? You have to, if anything that you want to do, let's say you wanted to, start a business, right? You have to register your business under this man's, you have to trademark your business. You have to register under, you have to, respect the tax laws and the codes and everything that goes along with registering the business. You have to pay the fees every year. I know because I had an LLC and I started a business a few years ago. Not a few years ago, but, this is over 10 years ago. And, you have to, fall in line. You can't just do your own thing. You have to give this man what's his. Uncle Sam needs his. All right. And again, when this man was talking, that's one of the first things that I thought of. Sending your kids to Caesar and they come back as Romans, right? And as they continue to, they forward themselves in this man's system, send them to school, they graduate high school, they go to college, they get jobs and start their so-called careers, because that's really what they focus on. We have people focusing on their careers and focusing on their lives here in Babylon the Great, and they think what this man has set up is actually beneficial to them, but it's actually the exact opposite, right? Nothing that this man has set up is beneficial. Nothing that this man has set up is any good for you. It's really just all a bunch of lies, deception, propaganda that they're feeding you, education that doesn't benefit you, education that really just that tricks you into thinking that you're smart. Look, I've worked in the education system for going on 17 years, man, in total, and I know firsthand that you ain't learning shit in these schools. You know what I'm saying? You're really just learning certain disciplines, and those disciplines don't necessarily benefit you, but it benefits Esau Edom. It benefits his system. Okay, learning how to wake up every day at a certain time, to get to a certain place at a certain time, making sure you're able to, take instructions and take order from a supervisor, working together, being able to be, making sure you can be a team player, okay? Making sure you have the ability to, what's the word I'm looking for? Really just implement yourself, for lack of a better word, into the system, okay, that is set up for you here. That's really what this whole thing is about. All right? And he says something else important right after. Let me just play maybe about 20 seconds. I don't remember exactly the point I wanted to make. So let me just play this and then I'll get to it.
Your kids off to Caesar and they come back as Romans. That's it. That's it, man.
see now the video wanna
You're wondering why everyone's gone woke and has no idea what bathroom to use anymore. Just if like, what happened to our kids? I'm like, well, you gave them to the government for their entire childhood. You saw them at dinner and you attended their sporting events, but the government raised your kids, and social media helped, and video games or whatever.
That, you know, the point that he made about, you know, they're not even able to choose a bathroom that they can use, but that, you know, that goes along with the agenda, right? So real quick, let me get, especially the young men. The agenda is to feminize the young men, you know, and cut their balls out from under them. You know what I mean? So they're feminized and they don't have the desire to not only rebel but even just question things, right? You know, there's a lot of men who don't desire to question the status quo, you know, and it's because they've been feminized. You know what I mean? You know, this whole entire existence at this point has a feminine energy, a feminine vibration to it. You know, let me get Romans real quick before I lose my train of thought. There's so much that I thought of when I watched this video, man. And there's so much that it speaks to here, but this is why this place got to be destroyed, man. Because enough is enough with all this, you know, enough is enough with this beast system and what it has to offer, which is nothing but evil and wickedness and lies and trickery and deception and, you know, debauchery, right? Romans 1:24 says, wherefore the Most High also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of the Most High into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. So when you think about, you know, what this man said about your children and not being able to choose the, you know, the right bathroom to go into, it's because here in this beast system you can identify as whatever it is that you want to identify as, and you can have men going into women's bathrooms and women going into men's bathrooms and men's playing women's sports and women's and vice versa and all this different. It's just a ball of confusion, right? It's just a ball of confusion, and that's what we're witnessing. That's what we're experiencing, a whole entire ball of confusion. All right, and nothing's in its right state, nothing's in its order. Okay, but the scriptures speak on these things. Verse 26 says, for this cause the Most High gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. You know what I mean? Women trying to be men, women having this extra masculine energy to them. You know, we all see it. It's you know, it's right in front of our eyes. We all see it. You know, and it's just one of those things where we just have to call it for what it is. And that's what this gentleman is doing in this video. He's calling it out for what it is, you know. And you can see at the top, it says the caption, the government raised your kids. And that's how it's set up. That's the beast system. The beast has raised your kids. And this is why they rebel against you. You may have the right intentions for your kids, but you don't spend enough time around them, right? You send them off to these schools, and then they spend all this time on social media trying to be woke and trying to have these concepts that, you know, trying to have a voice and a platform. You know what I mean? And it's all against the Most High. It's all against Yahawashi. And this is what and then we're left with a ball of confusion. We left with a bunch of evil, wickedness, and a bunch of confusion in the earth. You know what I mean? Verse 27, and likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burning their lust towards one another, men with men working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error, which was meat. You know what I'm saying? So the same thing is going for the men. You know, men are extra feminine, don't have a desire to question things, don't have a desire to speak up against evil and wickedness. It's just all kind of that spirit of, oh, well, it don't really affect me, so, you know, it just is what it is, you know. And the scriptures say, let me get it real quick because I don't want to chop it up. Proverbs 17:15 says, he that justifieth the wicked and he that condemneth the just, even the both are abomination to the Lord. So it's a lot of people who don't want to stand up for the truth. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you justifying evil and wickedness, you held just as accountable for those who are committing these abominable acts. You know? Let me get an example here in the first Maccabees, because that's, you know, I spoke on Hellenization. Let's get the example that's written in the scriptures just for edification's sake, because this is very important. You know, First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 7, it says, so Alexander, and when you read this chapter, it talks about, you know, that Greek Empire starting with Alexander the Great, actually with his father, you know, his father Philip the Macedonian, down to Alexander the Great, and when he passed, you know, then you had Antiochus Epiphanes. So that's where I'm going to begin there. First Maccabees 1:7 says, so Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves, so did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. Okay, so evils were multiplied in the earth when this man came into power. Okay, and during this Greek Empire and during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, it says verse 10, and there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 130th and 7th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. Okay, and this, you know, and we see that even to this day, you know, in a roundabout way. You know, Israelites who conform to this modern Roman society, and this modern Roman way of this modern Greco-Roman way of living, because they don't have a desire to turn back to the Heavenly Father. They don't have a desire to make sacrifices. They just want, you know, the ease and convenience and the comfort that Esau has provided them, you know, through, you know, everything that I mentioned before, you know, his education system, you know, and more so just the way of thinking. Okay. This is a very, very passive, sort of, Esau made it easygoing and passive for you, and he's rolled and laid things out and make it seem like you're not, you know, you're not oppressed, because he gave you a job, he gave you the opportunity to go to school, he gave you an opportunity to, you know, make decisions and do things, but it's all an illusion. You know, it's all an illusion. This man don't have no real intentions, no real good intentions for you. You know, his intent is to continue to create the illusion to make you feel like you have some sense of liberty and freedom. But, you know, the truth of the matter is you're a slave to his system, okay? And the scriptures talk about trusting in your own oppression, and that's what we've always seen. That's what this is talking about. It says, verse 11, 1 Maccabees 1:11, in those days went there out Israel, in those days went there out Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. And what does that remind you of? That reminds you of trusting in your oppression. And that's what, you know, our people have always done. Trust in their oppression, trust in their ruler, their master, Esau, Edom, the wicked. Okay. and refuse to turn back, refuse to put off this world, refuse to make sacrifices for the greater good. You know, verse 12 says, so this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward therein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen. Is that not what we're seeing? Right? The ordinances of the heathen, which is, again, giving your children over to the to this system, okay, sending them to Caesar, and then coming back as Romans, like the man mentioned. All right, verse 14, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, right? And that's what he meant by sending your children to Caesar. All right, in verse 15, and made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief. And that's what happens when you give yourself over to this man and his system. You're sold to do mischief and evil and wickedness. You know, because that's all this man does. His system, his society is set up that way. It's set up for you to be a demon. You know, it's set up for you to commit, adultery. It's set up for you to, to have your evil eye towards your brother. To be competitive, and to look at your brother as your own enemy. That's how he got this thing set up. And so on and so forth. All right. And speaking of, how things are just out of course and out of order, let me just get this here, Isaiah 24 in verse 5, and that's what this comes down to. Under this man's system, you're not gonna have anything that you're not gonna be able to participate in anything beneficial to you, because his system is set up under the spirit of Satan. It's disorderly. Isaiah 24 and 5 says, the earth is also defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Right? This man has done so much evil in the earth. Nothing that you see is in its original state. Nothing you see is under the order and the guidance and under the spirit of Yahawashi. It has an evil, wicked vibration to it. Everything. Verse 6 says, therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. So when you give your kids over to this society, give your kids over to the system, you're giving your kids over to a defiled world that has transgressed the laws and the ordinance of the Heavenly Father. So what do you think is going to be the result of it? And we're seeing it, we're watching it. I believe the point has been made for this video. I just want to get this last scripture, Psalms 82 in verse 5. It says, they know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. Okay, and they're out of course under this man's system, under Esau, Edom, under the wicked. All right, and there's no other way to really, this can't be contested. This can't be, This is just the truth of the matter. And what this man was talking about in that video, it really it confirms what the scriptures are saying. Okay, Hellenization is a real thing, and Hellenization is still going on. Okay, this is just a modern day version of it here in Babylon the Great under Esau, Edom. Okay, because it was the Edomites back in the Greek Empire, and it's the Edomites here and now today under Babylon the Great. All right, so with that, man, I'm gonna leave it there. I hope you were edified. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, Ba'ashem, Yahawashi, Ba'ashem, Akakwadash. Double honor to the apostles and the elder bishops, the great Millstone, who will well. Peace and salutation to the elect. Shalom.